Hey, good evening, guys. Just gonna do a quick, hopefully keep it under 10 minutes this time. Uh, Review of today's action on the ES. And first off, I want to apologize to Keith for sounding such like a douche when I said why look at SPX. I mean, look at SPX. It's a good measure of what we're doing as a market. Um, in terms of trading the SPY for what it really is, I prefer to use the ES. But apologies to Keith on that. Anywho, just looking on the hourly time frame to see what we did today in relation to yesterday. We closed right at that white trend line here. I'm going to expand this hourly chart. So this white trend line has been going back since the beginning of August. So we've kind of we've beaten that dead horse even more to death. But what was interesting today was for the first couple hours, we kind of been just riding on that white trend line until we really broke it. And then that's kind of when we were starting to look for yesterday's low, which was about, we'll really expand this here, 1162 and 3/4, which is this bar right here. And that's where we closed. So we opened around, what is it, 1167, 1168, around yesterday's close. And so what we did was we retested that low, and I'll show you the intraday chart to correlate that. And we broke those lows, and when we broke those lows, that's what I was kind of looking for. A lot of times, you know, as you can see, we kept on bouncing up that level. This is a level of rejection, that 1162/4. A low volume node implies price rejection. It's not price acceptance. That's what a high volume node is. And the screaming target, again, that huge high volume node where they want to accept the price, is also the gap fill from where we, gapped up and then we came back down. And as soon as we broke that 1162/4 area, that's where we came back and gap filled, which is really awesome. And so we made a low of about today in the afternoon session about 1143 and 1143 and a half, 1143 3/4, about a point away from this darn LVN, which I was looking for. But see, this yellow trend line here is also in confluence of there, so that's a typical area to really bounce off from, which we did, and closed about 1149 and a half. So those are kind of the downside targets that I was looking for. In my video yesterday, I did mention that I was looking for us to open within range of yesterday's range, which we did, and then to try for a gap fill of the 926 close, which coincide with that huge high volume node here. So again, this isn't just magic. This is really like price action dynamics analyzed down to a T. When we can analyze it down to a T, it helps us mitigate risk and really understand our feasible price targets and entries. So that's kind of what it is on the hourly chart. Just to kind of show you elaborate on the daily here. We were chopping around right here on this trend line until we broke the low of yesterday, which is 1162 3/4. 2 ticks away from that 1162/4 LVN. And when that broke, came back down, tested the gap fill. I thought we were going to bounce. Unfortunately, a lot more selling ensued. And after I noted that there was a little more selling to push down, we were looking at 1149, 1150. Actually, I was thinking about 1148-ish, which we did nail too. So once those downside targets hit, I was like, okay, well, time to bounce. Didn't bounce, and I still had some monthlies on, which I scaled down somewhere around here between 1150 and 1145. And again, that's kind of where we did not touch. They denied the LVN here at 1142 3/4, and we bounced. So that's the daily. Let me just go back here and coincide. Okay, so looking on the intraday, we opened at about 1172 quarter. You know, buyers and sellers tried to establish what they wanted to do for the beginning of the day. They rallied up towards 1179 quarter, which is the ID high and also high of the day. Why it stopped there? I'm just thinking that on the bigger chart here, 1178-ish and 1180, you know, what we could say is that, again, the area from back here, okay, anywhere above 1180 has always kind of been another area to do business. Anywhere below that 1180-ish area was kind of, okay, well, we need to see what happens below that area. So, you know, again, that's what you can see here. Underneath this 1179 area, this huge red bar on the hourly took place, and that was kind of this level to see what was going to happen. And what you have right above that area is 1185, which is that micro composite volume point of control, which is that teal colored line. So anyways, that's kind of the boundaries of where we want to see business being held if we were looking for targets on the downside. If we were to explore up above, you know, in that 1185 and north area to retest the 1190 area, that would kind of put us into more of a neutral positioning, or at least expectation. So that's kind of where we were holding. Apparently, I guess buyers felt that, you know, they didn't want to keep buying, and sellers thought that, okay, it's time to bring it down. So they brought it down, and we came close to yesterday's low, which was about 1162 3/4, like I mentioned. Bounced, came back up, and you see this how each time we bounced and we would kind of stay underneath VWAP. This kind of tricked me out here, because when we popped up here, I said, okay, well, shoot, maybe there might be a test of this LVN red line here, which is 1176 quarter, which I mentioned as I actually flipped on some. I had puts on for the majority of the day, or for the majority of the morning. Added some calls, and when we broke back down here, I had to cut my calls short and then add back some puts, and that was kind of like, okay, fake out. We didn't even get up to this LVN. We couldn't even test it to reject it. It just said, okay, enough is enough. In the beginning, in the morning, I actually sent out a chart to you guys and noted that there were two profiles. There was a profile above 1170 and a profile below 1170, and that was being from a low of 1162, 1163. And when we pushed through that LVN here, which was about 1170, 1169, I mentioned that if we can get up there, then we could probably test 1173 and then 1176. And I was waiting for this to hit, never hit, and it turned back around. So when it got back below to the lower balance, so in the morning it started trading around, and it had the beginning of the day's VPOC was around 1173.5, and that was the most number of contracts traded. Then it came back down and tested this lower area and created a VPOC at 1167 even. And I noticed that, okay, there are two profiles. There's one that's down here, separated by that 1170, 1169 line, and some business being done up here, which is another profile. And if you guys check your email, you can see that. So when I saw that it came back down and retested the lower profile, this is kind of more like, okay, bulls can't get it done. It kind of tapped above VWAP, but what it couldn't do was this dark blue line. It couldn't get above its midpoint range. And when it couldn't do that, it was really like time to start looking on the downside and seeing if we could break IB low, which we did about here. And this is kind of where I said, okay, look at where we're testing. It's the day's lows. If the day's lows can't hold, then we should look towards the gap fill, which is at 1158 even. And as you can see here, 1158, 1157, 3/4 is that huge high volume node on the black composite here, and also gap fill. So all these things kind of like point in the same direction, and that's where we hit. We nailed 1157 3/4 and we bounced, and we came back up and tried to get back up. I thought we were going to revisit IB high, didn't. I still hung on to some puts, and that's kind of why I like scaling at these certain areas. So anyways, came back down, hit that 1152 area, bounced, rallied, came back, and you see how it kept on back testing yesterday's lows and which was support earlier in the day now becomes resistance. See, 1162.5 now is resistance from the previous support earlier in the morning. I mean, you don't have to use volume profiling to really take notice of that. It's, you know, what was once support and was broken now becomes resistance, right? That's the general rule of support and resistance. But what I can see on the volume profile is if we did get back above there, then that would kind of make me more neutral and bullish, and I would have to cut more puts off. If it held that area, then that was my line in the sand to say, okay, hang on, let's see where we can go below. And I did mention that if we got back below down underneath 52.25, we could possibly see 48 and 50s. And I didn't even mention down here in the 42, 43 area. So that was my line in the sand again. And as you can see here on the volume profile, there is another major low volume node here, and it's not you know, it's not just magic that just happens to be support and resistance, that level 1162 and 3/4. It's because there really wasn't any volume traded here, and there's really no business done. So buyers and sellers at a standstill, waiting to see what happens. If no buyers can push us back up, then sellers will continue what they wanted to do, was bring it down even more. So broke that 1152 area. You know, it could test and bounce it, but you know, it said screw it, got back down below. So these levels actually coincide with the major composite, which I share with you guys, so you guys can use this as a guideline to see where you want to scale. If you trade SPY like I do, and with like Brad and you know, everyone else, you can use these levels as points to either scale and manage your risk, to say that, you know, I'm not getting out too early, oh shoot, it keeps on going out without me, you know, so all that jazz. So you can see down here about 1142, excuse me, go away please, 1142 something, which is another a low volume node area on the black composite over here. We bounced, and that's where we ended up, is around that 1148 area. So that's what I was looking at on these certain, you know, anytime you see a peak or a valley, it's some type of important level that, you know, is of interest. So just keep an eye out for that. I'll send these charts to you guys so you guys can see where we may test tomorrow. I have no idea what the heck's going to happen tomorrow, honestly. We could bounce off this 42 area. If we lose 42, then let's say hello to 34s, and 24s, 20s, which is another important level of support. Under 16 makes me really bearish, and I will look towards 1100 test if we get there. So above that level, if we still chop around that 1158 area, overnight high is 1158.5, which is around this, you know, still within the range of this high volume node area. You know, we could still probably back test this white trend line up here at 1169, and you know, you guys can use the levels above to gauge. Remember that I said that area around 1173 to 1180 is really hairy and sticky and messy, so I probably won't be trading much, probably stay cash and wait to see what happens if we resolve to the upside or downside of that area, and maybe perhaps retest this micro composite high volume node, that teal line. So just trading what the day gives us, and not trying to be overly bullish or bearish in any direction. So hope you guys did great today. We missed a lot of you guys in the room, and hopefully see you guys in there tomorrow. Okay, have a great night.